Good morning. It is Wednesday, the 26th of July 2023. Big shout out to everyone in the chat here. Welcome to Morning Brew on Labour Social. We've got Mark Wilson, we've got Justin, we've got David is in there saying hello. We've got Mark again. We've also got One Angry Pagan. We've got Wes in the chat. We've got Katrina and Ryan and Andrew. I look like I'm bouncing down with glee there. It's my chair. How's our Labour Party? A subset of lawyers and criminal gangs this morning. Well, indeed. So yesterday there was a tweet put out by our Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. Well, put out by his comms team, in which he grouped Labour, criminal gangs, and lefty lawyers or corrupt lawyers into one little cohort. And said that we're all as bad as each other, which is nice, except for the people who actually have to put up with this nonsense from the Tories on a daily basis. You know, the nonsense of them running the country for the Tories have run this country. If you hadn't noticed, they've been running the country for the last 13 years, running it into the ground. Still, the only country that hasn't recovered from the shock of COVID, the economic shock of COVID. And I love that the way that the Tories peddle this. They say, "Oh, the thing is though, we've got a faster growing economy. If you take this little bit of time in the immediate aftermath of 2020, then we've actually got a growing economy compared with 2020. Yeah, 2020 when everything shut down. You remember in 2020 when everything got locked down? Yeah, compared with that, we're doing well." Okay, brilliant. It's not a tweet; it's an X now. Says Katrina. No, it's a Zeet. It's a Zeet. They've said it's XEET. The problem is, in different languages, they pronounce the X character differently. So in, I guess, Spanish Mexican, it would be a ch sound. So maybe a cheat. In other languages, it would be like there'll be a sh sound. So it might be sheet. I'm going to send a sheet. Quick, send the sheet to Elon Musk. In other languages, they pronounce the X's differently. And so using that as the central bit of your platform to send something, it just upends everything we know about the NATO phonetic alphabet. Let's put it that way. Sunak is starting to look worse than Johnson with his racist policies. Sunak's racist policies. So this was a story about lawyers telling their clients who are asylum seekers or refugees to talk about their experiences that they were running away from, and basically to make sure that their message is got across, which is fair enough. If anyone watching this has ever had any experience with, say, the NHS especially in terms of mental health or even physical health, there are some occasions where it really is unhelpful for you to go, "Oh, well, it's not that bad, really. I mean, I don't want to make a fuss." No, make a fuss, because the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And if you have gone through hell, please, if you are an asylum seeker, tell the people that you need to tell what you've gone through and what you've seen and what you've experienced. Don't try and diminish that by saying, "Well, it's not a big deal, really." It is a big deal. It is a big deal. It's just that humans are weird. Sorry, I'm just going to move the mic. We get used to things a bit too easily. I take it the Tories have no issue with inflammatory attack ads anymore. Well, exactly. Twitter is X, no more bird. In Brazil, there were problems. An artist, Zusa, uses the X as a mark register for years. Well, there's a movie called X that came out last year. It's a horror movie set in the 1970s called X. And that's going to be a problem. And also, Microsoft and Facebook have trademarks over certain aspects of the letter X. Yeah, there's a story as well while we're here about PayPal. So PayPal was formed by a company that Elon Musk ran and another company coming together in about the year 2000. When that happened, Musk wanted to change the name of PayPal to X.com. And people at the time running the company were like, "Well, why would you want to change the name of PayPal? Because people are using it as a verb now. They're saying, let's PayPal each other." Just said, on eBay, which is what it was used for to start with, people were saying, "Yeah, PayPal me the money." They wouldn't say X me the money. He wanted to call it X PayPal and then just migrate slowly to X.com, a domain that he bought for $1 million back in the day. I think he probably still owns it. And the board of directors, everyone else told him to piss off. And I think he actually got sacked as a CEO over it. I don't know if that's really why he got sacked as a CEO, but he did. He got sacked as the CEO of PayPal back in 2001 or something. It was a long time ago, 22 years ago. And one of the reasons was because he wanted to change the name's company to X, which the board of directors, I assume, at the time said, that sounds like the name of a porn site. Yeah. Having my morning brew in my newly arrived Labour social mug. my wife's reaction: grow up. Oh, what? That's great. Well done. I love it. You seem to forget, Graham. This is from the Freckle Puny. Brexit is a state of mind, according to Ben Habib. So whether it's actually successful or not, as promised in 2016, it's no longer the point. Brexit state of mind. Someone needs to do a song. Unfortunately, Labour can't really complain too much about Sunak's delightful tweet after Labour's series of messages about Sunak a few months ago. Well, yeah, this is why people spoke out about Labour's policy of doing that particular tweet, that attack out on Rishi Sunak, which was accurate. But yeah, it just shows that the gloves are off. It's getting dirty. And I think that this kind of thing turns more people off and turns them on. Not in that way. Politics is quite boring. But yeah, unless you work for Boris Johnson, apparently. So I did a few videos yesterday about Yorkshire Water, doing with Telvalad, and I did a video about Lord Frost standing up in the House of Lords and saying climate change is going to be a good thing for Britain. Seriously. And also I did a video about, what's the other thing I did a video on? I've forgotten now. Bloody hell. oh, Charlotte Owen. Talking about getting ahead in politics. Charlotte Owen becoming the youngest life peer in history for some reason that we're not allowed to know for some reason. And I was going to do another video about Rishi Sunak's his mean tweet, which I might still do today. But I do feel like this is sort of what happens if the left try and respond in the same way that the Tory to the Tories attack ads with more of attack ads. You just end up with an arms conflict, which if you're willing to go all the way, then that's fine. But I fear that Labour in general would probably be a bit too timid to go the full way that I would go if I could, as I might on this channel, fair warning, because I'm not, with this channel, Phil and I, we're not affiliated with Labour more than being members of the party. Hopefully they won't throw us out anytime soon. But yeah, we don't speak on behalf of Labour. And so we can be sort of the middlemen. We can be like the attack dogs of Labour. So we can actually go after Sunak and go after Johnson and go after all these spivs and chances and scumbags that populate the Tory benches without being hauled over the coals for calling Tories scum, like what happened to Angela Rayner last summer. Anyway, this Ken is a seed unit. Excellent ad. I saw that. I saw the front cover of the new European newspaper, which I wish I could show you on the screen actually, but it doesn't come up on the Tomorrow's Papers Today website. But it's a really, really good cover. I will go through the papers today because I want to talk about this. But yeah, they had a really great cover on the front of the New European, which was a Barbie doll of Suella Braverman, and it said barbaric instead of Barbie, which I thought was great. If we are aware of the opposition, I'll have ads of Putin with his fists up and the Tories in the tagline, Putin's Tory puppets. Indeed, vendetta. I did a video about that last year. I did a Putin's Puppet Pals video, which was a little Mickey take of the old Potter's Puppet Pals video from 13 years ago. It was really popular 13 years ago. Sticking with the times, Graham. And yeah, that went down kind of well. It's unlisted at the moment, but I could bring it back. Should I bring it back? Does anyone want to see Putin's Puppet Pals video that I made? It took me ages to do that. To pass taxes in your favour, so you can keep as much as possible. Politics, for the most part, should be boring. Yes, fuck up uni. Or at least not a roller coaster ride followed by the ghost train, followed by the Dodgems, and back to the ghost train. Couldn't agree more. If I were the opposition, I'll have ads of Putin with his fists up. I've read that one. Darian says there's a lot more that's begging to come out about Wootton, possibly even more criminal charges for the wretched man. Absolutely. Dan Wootton of GB News and formerly of the News of the World and the Sun. The man who was accused of hounding Caroline Flack to death by Caroline Flack's fiance in court, and a man who is, by all accounts, the worst, just simply the worst. And the reports in the Bylines Times allege that on numerous occasions he got men, sometimes straight men, to commit sexual acts on video for the purposes of either giving them money or for, for Dan Wootton, I guess, for pleasure, I guess, or for blackmail, which is a criminal offence. It's a massive criminal offence. And the Department of Culture, Media and Sport wrote to the Sun newspaper yesterday or a couple of days ago, asking for an update on the investigation into Dan Wootton's crimes, potential crimes, alleged crimes, and hasn't hit back. There you go. That's the Sun for you. And he's still on GB News as far as I know, which is amazing considering how much of a story GB News and the Sun made of the Hugh Edwards scandal, which, as far as we know, didn't involve any kind of blackmail, and it wasn't something that pushed someone to the brink of suicide, as far as we know. But the fact that they made such a meal of it, it just speaks volumes for whose side they are on. It's certainly not the side of righteousness or justice or fair play in any way, shape, or form. Right, so talking of lack of fair play, we're going to go over to the papers now for today. We've got the train delay and the ticket officers' new hope. This is an interesting story from the Mirror. I don't know if it's interesting enough to be on the front page, but I do completely agree with the campaign to stop the Tories from closing down all the ticket officers in the country. So basically, there's been a delay in that augmentation of that. Augmentation? That's the wrong word, isn't it? Implementation. Ugh, it's early. I can't do big words when it's early. But yeah, so and obviously they've got this picture in Rhodes in Greece, which is suffering from wildfires. All around the Mediterranean rim at the moment is on high alert for fires because of climate change. And in the Times, though, it leads with number 10 wants NatWest boss to quit over Farage. This was about, thank you very much for the super chat there, Don Wootton. It's Don Wootton, sorry. It's Johnny Copperhead. Oh my God, it's so early. Thank you very much for the super chat there, Johnny. Copperhead, £5 super chat. Dan Wilson, lovely bloke, honest. Yeah. Try not to read the wrong bit of the message, Graham. Come on. Anyway, so what I want to talk about is the fact that the front cover of the Times is talking about this boss of NatWest, who's now quit, by the way, over leaking the story to the BBC about Farage losing his bank account, which I don't really understand because it was Farage who was the person who complained about it in the first place. I don't think the bank said anything about it. I don't know. And then the Daily Mail asking this question: what planet are? Oh God, why do we get adverts? Go away, adverts! You're doing me head in. What planet are they on? Yeah, that's it there. That's the actual go away advert. That's the actual headline, and it's about not the Tories. Being like getting rid of inheritance tax and wanting to get rid of inheritance tax and freaking out about billionaires not being able to use banks, millionaires, sorry, not being able to use banks for millionaires. Rishi praises Mail expose of corrupt immigration lawyers, and then Bar Council attacks him for damaging trust in lawyers. So this is again the Daily Mail basically apparently criticizing bent migration lawyers, because this is the big thing in the world of the Mail. This is what they think is the most important thing that is going on, which is kind of a little bit nauseating considering what is going on. But yeah, a special investigation, arrange a marriage to stay in Britain. This is almost as though lawyers are there to protect their clients and give them advice on achieving their goal of being found not guilty or staying in the country. That's what a lawyer does. That's literally their job. The headline of this could be, what lawyers do their job. That could be the headline. Thank you very much to David Faulkner. I just heard Novara Media host Aaron Bastani was the latest victim of physical assault. Those with right-wing views are thugs. That's awful. Thanks for the super chat, but that is absolutely awful. We know that a journalist for Bylines Times had blood thrown on a car windscreen and threatening messages sent to Peter Jukes, the editor of the Bylines network. Um, and then the Daily Express, obviously. I mean, this is kind of like great. This is the juxtaposition of these two newspapers, these sister newspapers. One owned by a vile multimillionaire, the other one that used to be owned by a vile multimillionaire, but isn't anymore. I think it's owned by the Mirror Group now. But yeah, it used to be owned by Richard Desmond, who made all his money through peddling porn. But yeah, no, morality, family values, etc. What planet are they on? Asks the Daily Mail. Well, the Daily Express says, how can bank chief in Farage Rao keep job? So what you've got there is a great sort of thing where those two kind of complement each other. Like, what are they on? There could be an arrow pointing towards the Daily Express going, why are they going on about a millionaire and his bank account when the world is on fire? The Tories are doing such a terrible job. Everyone's losing their mortgages. People are losing their homes. People are being left destitute by Tory corruption and basically, one thing I want to get to by the time we get to the bottom of this is I can't see any stories about Charlotte Owen, a random seemingly woman who's achieved nothing, done nothing, been nowhere, who is now a unelected legislator for life. Could be another 60 years, could be 70 years, who knows? She's 30 years old, she's done nothing. And we want to know what she's done. Are any of these newspapers going to investigate? Are they buggery? So yeah, the UN calls for phone ban in schools. Okay, Guardian. All right. This is climate change. There is no magic defense there, which is a good way of putting it. This is climate change. And then the Daily Telegraph obsessed, just as the Express is, with the Farage story again. I leaked Farage story to BBC, but I won't resign, says the lady in the firing line for NatWest, who own Coutts Bank, that refused Nigel Farage's want to have a bank account with them. They offered him an account with the NatWest. He said, no, that's for plebs, or something along those lines. Anyway, she has resigned now, so that headline's a bit out of date. Bringing home the bacon. That's from the Daily Star. Let's ignore that. And then the I newspaper leads with Sunak delays major recycling plan in Tories' eco backlash. And this is to do with the fact that they feel like they won in Uxbridge because literally 500 people voted the wrong way. Not even that, maybe 250 people voted the wrong way. And because those 250 people who didn't really understand how ULEZ works, there were people talking about having a Tesla on their path and having to pay £12.50 a day for the Tesla that was on their path. And it's like, no, you don't. It's only like really old cars that are going to have to pay this. And you should be able to get a scrappage fee for it if you get rid of your old car, and you can buy a new car, hopefully, for just 500 quid, which you will comply with the ULEZ standards. Anyway, so that's the newspapers. But yeah, not a word that I can find. I don't know if you can spot it, but not a word about Charlotte Owen being made a lady in the House of Lords and ladies, obviously. So and so I just want to ask a question. Do you think that a Keir Starmer put someone in the House of Lords for no reason that they could give, who is rumoured could be related to him or have had a relationship with him? Do you think the papers would not have that on the front cover the next day? Do you think? Do you think they would have all ignored it? Do you think? Nah. And this is another thing. I want to talk about The Guardian for a moment, because The Guardian should have led with this. This should have been all over The Guardian today. The fact that the Tories' spiv machine is in overdrive, the Nepo baby machine. And obviously she's privately educated, that goes without saying. But did you expect anything else? The fact that they would not have let Starmer get away with this, but they allow Boris Johnson to get away with it. And there was an article in The Guardian today, which is a really, really good article about Totnes down in Cornwall. And down there, they've had a Tory MP for 99 years. They're sick of it. They want to get rid of their Tory MP, which is fair enough. You can't argue with that, can you? Get rid of your Tory MP, why not? And to do this, they're going to have a series of primaries. This is quite interesting. They get 3 progressive candidates, 1 for the Greens, 1 for the Lib Dems, 1 for Labour. And they're going to do like hustings around the constituency. There's 6 different places around the constituency. They're going to do hustings. And then the people who are supporting this movement are going to vote for one of the 3 candidates that they think did best out of those particular hustings. And hopefully all the people who are going to vote progressively will vote for that one candidate. I mean, not everyone will, but most of them will, enough to oust the Tory. Great news story. But it was written by George Monbiot. Biot? I don't know how. Is it Monbiot? I guess I don't pronounce the T. And George is a Green, and he hates Labour. He hates Keir Starmer with a passion. George is obviously privately educated because he gets a column in the newspaper. That's how it works in this country. Keep up at the back. And he couldn't help himself in this article, which I'm not going to share now because of what he did. But he essentially calls Keir Starmer a tyrannical fascist. And I'm like, oh, for God's sake, this is an article literally about people putting tribalism aside. And he can't even go through 1,000 words without going all tribal. I'm amazed he didn't mention the Lib Dems coalition with the Tories. Oh, yeah, the Lib Dems, eh? What about them? Just a little word of advice, George, if you're watching. I know you're not, but if you were, it didn't really help in the 2019 election. That not only was Jeremy Corbyn probably the most unpopular leader of a major political party in the world at that time, it also didn't help, get this, that Labour's people who were supposedly putting out the message for people to vote for Labour liked nothing more than the navel gaze about how rubbish it was last time Labour were in power. Oh, God, Tony Blair. Oh, God, I hate those Blairites. Oh, the Iraq War. Anyone remember the Iraq War? We're going through the worst cost of living crisis. We've got the austerity 2.0. We've got this disgusting Brexit deal that's going through with Boris Johnson that's going to absolutely shaft everyone who voted for it. But yet, all these Labour campaigners kept on going, oh, yeah, but the Iraq War, eh? And I'm like, shut up. Just stop the tribalism just for 5 freaking minutes so we could get the Tories out of office. But no, we couldn't. We couldn't. Just put it aside for a minute. Now, look, you can criticise the fact that Labour and the Lib Dems, and possibly the Greens, don't team up to fight elections. Sometimes they do, actually. In an election in 2019 in Wales, in Redfordshire. I can't pronounce it. There was an election there in which there was a progressive candidate who stood as a representative of, I think, Plaid Cymru and the Greens and the Lib Dems, and they won. But they were only in office for about 6 months because then we had the general election and they lost their seat. Anyway, tribal politics is not great. But have a look at the results in the latest by-election, the by-election last week. In the constituencies that Labour were going to win, the Lib Dems essentially stood down. They did hardly any campaigning because they wanted to make sure they got rid of the Tory, and they were successful up in Yorkshire. And Labour returned the favour. They did hardly any campaigning down in Somerton and Frome. As a result of that, they got the Tories out in 2 seats. And the percentage share of Labour in Somerton went down, and the percentage share of the Lib Dems in Selby also went down as well, up in Yorkshire, because people lent their votes to another progressive candidate. So behind the scenes, Labour and Lib Dems are doing this anyway. And obviously, progressive voting and voting alliances and things like that, tactical voting, going to be absolutely crucial in the next election. And hopefully, once and for all, because once this election's out of the way, hopefully the next election will be fought on things like PR and getting back in the EU, possibly universal basic income. We will see. My point being is, if you're going to write an article about how bad tribalism is and how it's allowed the Tories to be in power for over 2/3 of the last century, then don't be tribal in the actual article, okay? Just a bit of advice. Just I don't know. No one listens to me. Not least people who had an expensive education. Anyway, indeed, I remember when Rupert Maxwell topped himself, the Tories were quick to bring up Maxwell's links to Labour, yet omitting the Tory donor Azil Nadir, who fled to Cyprus evading justice. That's a feckle puny. Well, the Tories have barely ever mentioned the fact that the real reason that the railways are so messed up is because of the Beeching Acts, which they brought in, and the privatisation of the railways, which they brought in. Two things. They brought in the Beeching Acts to basically destroy the railways so they were unprofitable and could never be profitable ever again unless you jack the prices up to ridiculous eye-watering levels, which is what they've had to do in order to still make a profit for the shareholders, most of whom are foreign companies like SNCF and Deutsche Bahn. And there's a transport company in the Netherlands that owns a huge chunk of our public transport infrastructure. I mean, that they did that on purpose, and that's hardly brought up the fact that Ernest Marples, who was the Transport Minister, Secretary of State for Transport in the 1960s, commissioned the Beeching Acts, got rid of all these train stations, dug up all these miles, thousands of miles of train track, decent train track that could have been used. We dug it all up. And train track, don't forget, takes a lot less maintenance than a road. You think about a train track, it's designed for heavy vehicles going over it in one way, whereas roads, every time a heavy vehicle goes over a pothole, it makes the pothole worse. And the amount of damage that is done to roads by vehicles is exponential. So instead of it doubling, instead of going up proportionately, it doubles every time you go up by a few kilograms. It is insane. So as an 18-wheeler, a big truck, does a lot of damage to roads. And as we're getting more towards electric cars, which are slightly heavier than internal combustion engine cars, you're going to see more damage to the roads, and it costs more to upkeep. But don't worry, we'll have plenty of oil left in the future after it's all been taken out the North Sea for some reason, because in the future we won't need roads or plastics. No, keep burning oil, kids. It's an infinite resource. Conservative says, I'm listening to you going, oh, thank you very much. Super chats are open. He still controls the party alongside Mendelsohn. Marples was a tarmac magnate. Beeching's cuts with massive Tory stitch-up. Yeah, Marples was. His company, Marples Ridgeway Construction, actually constructed the Hammersmith flyover. That was one of theirs. And his last act as a British citizen in the 1970s was to flee the country to Switzerland or Monaco or somewhere, owing the taxman £2 million. Tory criminal gangs. The Tories are a criminal gang, and we have the Prime Minister, who is the second Prime Minister in history to actually have a criminal charge against him, Rishi Sunak, for parties that he attended along with Boris Johnson. These cocaine-fueled orgies that went on while you couldn't visit you now, and because Tories can do what they like. And he also got another fixed penalty notice for doing a video in the back of a car without a safety belt on. He's an idiot. Guy's an idiot. EVs are pretty much as bad as all other cars. No, I'm going to take issue with that. They're not. They're nowhere near as bad as petrol cars. Because don't forget, petrol cars, diesel cars, it's not just the fact that they are burning fossil fuels all day, every day. It's also the fact that you've got to transport that fossil fuel. Well, you've got to get it out the ground, and that takes a lot of energy. And then you've got to transport it to a refinery. That takes a lot of energy. Then you've got to refine it. That takes a lot of energy. Then you've got to get it to the petrol station. That takes a lot of energy. And you've got to store it in the petrol station. So if you think about all the energy costs of getting that fuel into the car compared with a wind turbine putting the electricity into a car over the lifetime of a car, over the 10, 15 years that the car is in use, it is a lot better for the environment to use an electric vehicle than it is to use an internal combustion engine, which is something that the oil industry and the automobile industry don't want you to know. They don't want you to think that. They want you to think they're all as bad as each other. Does that sound familiar? Because that's what they want you to think about the Labour Party and the Lib Dems and the Greens and the SNP and Plaid Cymru. They're all as bad as each other. They're all literally as bad as the Tories. No, they're not. They are not. There is no way that an incoming Labour government is going to be any way, shape or form as bad as the Tories. It's an impossibility. And I'll tell you why it's an impossibility, because the newspaper barons, that's newspaper oligarchs that run this nation and create the narrative that most people plug into, won't let them. They won't let them off the hook for anything. They won't even be able to have a beer with a curry in Durham. Conservator, since you asked for it, €5.99 super chat. Thank you very much, Conservator. That's very nice of you. I'm going to have to go in a minute, but if anyone else wants to throw in a super chat, you're very welcome to. It's my birthday. No, it's not my birthday. Just say it's my birthday, even though it's not my birthday. And one angry pagan says, life is hardy. Extreme global events have happened many times in the history of life on Earth, and every time life finds a way, we need to learn to adapt. Yeah, but I mean, there's adaptation. There's a very quick way of solving the problem with climate change, which is to decimate the population. But that's horrible. I mean, even thinking about that is horrific. You're talking about genocide on a biblical, well, even more than biblical, on a scale we've never seen before, in order to make the planet habitable for future generations. I mean, there's the idea that we can just stop having children, which would help in a few generations, but I don't think that's going to happen in a lot of places that really could do with a little less population. And also, one of the problems with capitalism, it always has to make more money. It's never enough just to make the same as you made last year. You've got to grow. They're obsessed with growth. It's got to go. The profit's got up. No, they've stayed exactly the same, but we're still making a lot of money. No, that's no good. It's got to grow. We've got to grow. And the only way you can do that, realistically, once your market is saturated, is for there to be more people in the market who can buy your stuff. Population. So, it's the extinctionist agenda is not something that I want or even want to consider as a possibility for the future of this planet. I want there to be a concerted effort looking at Europe right now. It's just on fire. And the European Union, the US, China, to work on getting rid of this addiction to this filthy, dirty, disgusting, toxic fossil fuel dinosaur blood that dinosaur juice, I should say, that we currently run our world on. We need to move away from it and move towards a cleaner, greener, energy self-sufficient model. And it's a bit like public transport. Doesn't matter how much it costs, your economy will improve as a result, because we won't be reliant on energy from other countries. We can make our own energy. Doesn't that sound good? Sound good? Yeah, sounds good to me. Anyway, Helen Wilkes, thank you very much, Helen. Tell Wes G he's talking nonsense. Okay, Wes G, you're talking nonsense. If you pay me to say it, I'll say it. If Wes G wants to pay to me to say he's not talking nonsense, I'm here. I haven't actually read the chat. I don't know what people are talking about, but yeah. Probably shouldn't do that, should I? So, there you go. There's an ill-informed remark. Literally. Paul says we need the new tech that Korea is producing drive into a station, the battery tray is dropped in the bottom of the car, a new charged battery tray is popped in, and you drive off. Well, Paul, I mean, look, at the moment, the new cars that are rolling off the assembly line have over 200 miles of range, and the fast chargers that we now have in service stations all over the UK, petrol stations, what are they called? Yeah, service stations on the motorway services and places like that, and supermarkets can charge your car up to 80% in about half an hour, which is about how long it takes you to do your shopping. So you can literally go to the supermarket, plug your car in, go and do your shopping, unplug your car, drive off. For longer journeys, yeah, you can stop at the motorway services for half an hour, have something to eat, get back in your car, drive off. And the fuel that you will buy, the energy that you will buy from to plug it in, will cost you, even with the food that you buy, less than it would have cost to fill up your tank for the equivalent journey. So it's cost efficient in that respect. And the idea that it's going to take 8 hours to charge your batteries is nonsense. It does if you slow charge it, but with the fast chargers that they have now, the technology they have now, it's not as big an issue as people make it out to be. And do you know what? In the greater scheme of things, good. If you've got a long journey, take the train. That's what I say. Take the train. Although, having said that, we looked at getting the train to Liverpool with the kids, and apparently the train companies charge the same for kids now as they do for adults. So it works out about a quarter of the cost to drive. A quarter of the cost to drive from Durham to Liverpool than it does to get the train. Isn't that remarkable? Yeah, that's public transport at its finest. It's not public transport, it is private transport. Right, we're going to get into a big conversation here about lithium batteries. So I'm going to have to cut it off because it is 6 minutes past 10. Although it did come on a little bit late today, we need to keep these shows neat and tidy. But if you've got ideas for moments of truth or discussions on the agenda between me and Phil and Labour Social with me and Tansky and Aid Thompson and Ollie Bowler Hatman and Marcus, if he ever comes on one of our shows, and Darren, and Femi, and everyone else. let us know in the chat. Just say if you want to drop me a message, you go to grahamdavidshughes.com. There is a thing at the bottom of the page there that allows you to send me a message directly. Otherwise, put it in the chat and say, hey, Graham, why don't you do a video on X, Y, Z? I'm always up for ideas. So, yeah, I will try and do that. If you can build a petrol station in the Outer Hebrides, you can erect you can erect charging points way more easily. Yes, Phil. I mean, the transmission of the energy is very difficult when it's a physical commodity that you've got to put in a vessel and get to the place. When it's electric and it can go along a wire, it's much, much more efficient. Okay, so thank you very much for the super chat. Thanks for watching. Thanks to all of my wonderful patrons. If you want to become a patron of this channel, head over to laboursocial.com/ no. Come over to patreon.com/ Labour Social. Maybe I should make a page on my Labour Social website saying laboursocial.com/ Patreon. Okay, and Phil Morehouse will be here in the morning at 9:30 for your messages and have a chat and talk about what's happening in the news. And he will be broadcasting from his place for the first time, because usually I produce the show from here. We're going to try something new tomorrow. So bear with us at 9:30 tomorrow morning in case things go tits up, which they may well do. But hoping that they won't. So look, thanks for joining us. Thanks for all your messages. Sorry I couldn't get through everything. There's a lot of messages in there. And I hope you have a really great day. And until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.